Welcome to Stories from Sight, the renovation podcast that looks beyond those perfect interiors to the real journeys behind them. What went right, what went wrong, and what did people learn along the way? I'm Amy Donalik, and with my co-host Jane Middlehurst, we're here to share the stories that inspire and guide you on your own renovation journey. In this episode, we speak with Robyn, who shares how she transformed a budget-friendly 1930s home into a bold, joyful space with the help of architects Office S&M. It's a story about colour, collaboration, and creating a home that radiates happiness. Hi, Robyn. Welcome to Stories from Sight. Great to have you with us.
Hello, thank you for having me.
You have an Instagram handle called That Purple House, which I think says so much. And I guess I just wanted you to start at the beginning and maybe describe the outside of the house maybe first.
Yeah, so like you say, I think that purple house is kind of what it says on the tin, that sometimes when you meet people who live nearby and you'll sort of be asking where you live, and I say, "Oh, do you know that purple house on the corner?" Yeah, that's our house. So it is a very, very purple house. It's got two different shades of purple, a darker purple on the top and a lighter purple on the bottom. And then we have a pink kind of semicircle metallic or metal canopy with yellow columns, a minty green front door, and then black and white checkerboard tiles on the kind of the porch entrance and around the border of the extension as well. So yeah, very, very colourful.
It's amazing. If anyone hasn't seen it, I recommend going and following Robyn straight away. Can I ask you, was this your vision for the house? Is that what you saw? Or can you talk us a bit about that journey?
Yeah, it was a real evolution, really. So, where to start? You can always go back so far, can't you?
You can go right back to the beginning. We don't mind.
Yeah. Okay. So
Yeah.
when we were looking for a house around here, you've got loads of roads that are beautiful Victorian terraces, which all have that very similar classic sort of London townhouse layout. And then around where we are, you've got a bit more of these kind of wider 1930s, kind of the front hung tiles, like that sort of wider layout. When we were looking, we were very much, which I'm sure lots of people find themselves in this situation of this is our budget. Do we either buy somewhere at the higher end of our budget that is how we want it to be and the house that we would want it to live in, or do we look for something cheaper that we can do something to? And we always kind of knew that we wanted to put our mark on something. And yeah, so all the terraced houses were at the higher end of our budget. And even the ones that had loads of work done, it was well, this isn't our style. This isn't the home that we would want to live in. And then this one came up for way cheaper, and it's literally like a 2-minute walk from the fancier terraced houses. And yeah, it was way, way cheaper. I've always loved that kind of mid-century, big open spaces, big windows that let loads of light in. That sort of mid-century Miami, Palm Springs, that kind of vibe, which living in Southeast London, I think it's a little bit of a romantic fantasy that I can have this tropical house. Anyway, it's south facing as well. So when you came in, even though the rooms were all broken up and you didn't have that big expanse, you could kind of imagine, right, we can really open this up and make this into that really kind of angular, wide light space. So yeah, so that was kind of what drew us to this house and those initial design inspirations. We really wanted to do something colourful, unusual, unexpected, and playful and joyful, and bring something that was joyful for people that looked inwards as well, looked in from the street. And my initial thing that I wanted to do was remove those front hung tiles, which I just think are a bit grim. Sorry to anyone who loves them. And replace it with something like a metallic curved aluminium in a really light fresh blue or something like that. Obviously, immediately once you started to look at costs for these things, it was no, you're keeping your tiles. So we had to think about what we could do instead, which is where the idea of painting came up. And then my husband used his amazing paint skills to do a mock-up, playing around with the colours. And then we were actually, this purple works. It wasn't something that we thought, right, when we move, let's have a purple house. There's something about purple that almost seems like the closest thing to a neutral outside of Like when you're thinking about, like, we have lots of red bricks around us, red and grey and browns. So I suppose actually to introduce colour, to us purple, some of the neighbours might not agree with this, but that felt like the most subtle.
And can I ask you, who was your architect?
Office S&M.
And did you purposely choose them because they are kind of known for being like exactly what you say, bringing joy and that colour?
Yeah.
Is that what drew them to you?
Absolutely. So I think on Pinterest, I put in something like playful London architects or something like that. And that's one of the first that came up. And yeah, I was really taken by their use of colour and just how unexpected everything was. I think for me, really lovely design is things that make you go, oh wow, I wasn't expecting that. That's really surprising. Yeah, so that's what really drew me to them. And their really interesting use of materials. That was something that I always loved. And when I'd look at their Instagram, and we did end up actually using this company, Miral, for our worktops. I think when I saw the materials that Office S&M worked with and the companies that they sourced them from, it was that sort of like, oh wow, there's so much possibility and opportunity here for us to discover some new stuff to create this home that is beyond anything we could imagine. Because that's why you hire an architect, right? Is because you want something that's of course going to stand up and have the right angles and have the right materials for building, but also for us it was about the possibility of having something beyond our sort of wildest imagination, I suppose.
Could you talk us through a little bit about how that design process worked? You know, what did you give to them and what did they show back to you and how did that evolve?
And do you know what? It was really lovely, actually. When I was thinking about our conversation today, obviously I've got an 8-week-old baby and my brain is kind of in the clouds somewhere. So I was like, right, I need to really do some revision here on my own life experiences. So looked back over the Pinterest board and the initial one that we had. And so one of the very first images that we gave to them, there's a bakery in Glasgow, I think, called Ard Bakery, ARD. And she creates the most incredible cakes. She does lots of wedding cakes. And they've got they're really Memphis Milano inspired. So they're like loads of geometric shapes, loads of different patterns and colours. Like they're just absolutely mind blowing. And that was one of the first things that we shared with them as a real strong kind of reference image. And then when they showed us the first design, it was more that they'd gone with some of the colours as well as the shapes, but the colours from those cakes. And I was very like, oh no, this isn't the colours that I like. And the colours that I like make me feel really happy. And the colours I don't like, I really don't like. But very, very quickly, they got a real sense of, where we were going with the kind of the colour palette that we like. We had a bit of a joke throughout around me really not liking yellow. And then we've ended up with loads of yellow in the house. But there's a particular type of yellow. But so it was those images of the cake with the shapes, and then also looking at like old American diners, sort of that retro futurism of blending the old and then the new with all the big curves. And again, I think for me, there's something that when I look at that kind of design, there's something very optimistic about it. It was about people, designers and architects, looking to the future, wasn't it? And kind of imagining what was to come next, which I think just has that optimism, which I think is what you see in the design of our house. It's about using architecture and design to bring joy and to bring, just happiness, really, I suppose. Like I really love pastels, but not in like a saccharine way. And that works. That definitely works for some people, is those really soft pastels. But for me, it's sort of more, like everything I buy seems to end up with some sort of pastel in it.
Even your nails are.
Yeah, nails, yeah. And if you ever see my children, they're often it's a bit ridiculous. We look like we've sort of been vomited out of our own house sometimes when we leave. It's a nice image. Yeah. So that was where some of that design stuff came from.
And can I ask you, with their involvement, was it kind of all the way through?
All the way through. And that was a really big decision for us. Obviously, of course, you're presented with the different options of the service package. And it was a big financial commitment to have them manage the contract. And I'm so glad we did it. I'm so glad we did it. We really reduced what we could do with the house anyway. We wanted a 2-story extension. Obviously, that immediately, once you started costing things, right, that's in the bin. Upstairs bathroom, that ended up in the bin. And I think if they hadn't managed the contract, we maybe could have afforded to do something like the bathroom. but I'm really glad we made that sacrifice, partly just because of life. I mean, I think our oldest, I was on maternity leave. He was 6 weeks old when we moved in here. So I was on maternity leave for the first year, and then I'd gone back to work. Mike was working full time. We had other family stuff going on that was taking us away from things. And then when I think about the technicalities of some of the design and some of the challenges that we came up against that didn't become stressful, this was the least stressful build. And I was anticipating that, of course, there's going to be stuff that's going to set us back months or mean that budgets go through the roof and we're tearing our hair out and it's going to be awful. And it just wasn't. It was so smooth. But that's not to say that there was a potential for that, because there was. But having Katrina and Marlin on board to really tightly manage all of that, it was a very collaborative process, and it was problem solving as opposed to any conflict. And I think that if we hadn't had them on board with their technical knowledge to meet the builders with their amazing technical knowledge and all those things, that's when I think we would have fallen into potential problems that could lead to conflict and just horribleness and everything kind of falling apart. So I think that was the best decision we made in terms of allocating the budget, was putting a chunk aside for that contract management.
That's really good to hear, isn't it? Just the kind of benefits that you get from that. So did the architects also use a builder that they had worked with before? Because I guess that also is a benefit, where there's a communication and an understanding about details and that technicality.
I can't remember whether they knew the builder. I mean, I remember when people were coming out to review the site for tender.
Yeah.
And it was so interesting hearing the different conversations and hearing people go, okay, yeah, that little tiny join up there, and having like a 15-minute conversation about one tiny little detail. And that made me think like, oh, yeah, I bet they're good, because they're noticing. And the ones that would come around and not really even be, taking in those things to have the conversations, I was quite interested by how much I could pick up from that. I think something that I really appreciated was there would be times where all of us would be on site and we'd all be looking at something and being like, okay, so you were going to do that thing. Oh, that's going to mean we need to have this like pipe sticking out here, boxed in. I don't really fancy that. And everyone would put their heads together. Obviously, most of those conversations would be the architect and the builder putting their heads together. But just being able to hear that and sometimes be part of it, and how amazing they were at problem solving really, really creatively and really calmly. Like there was never any panic. I mean, obviously this is what they do. This is the creative part of their jobs, and they worked in synergy really well together in that way. So they had a brilliant relationship. We had a brilliant relationship. It just all felt very, really, can't think of the word.
Like cohesive.
Yeah, really cohesive. Yeah.
It sounds really lovely. Something in my mind is like there's some kind of elements that are clearly bespoke made, like your porch and other things. And I'm wondering how, when you're making those decisions about what to have, were the architects getting things priced for you individually, and you saying, okay, well, this is going to be this much and that's going to be that much, so which one do you want? Were those conversations happening?
Yeah, definitely. And that was something throughout, like the transparency was, we knew down to the penny what every element was going to cost. And that's something I really appreciated about working with Office S&M was that transparency throughout that allowed us to go, sometimes you could see it was a bit uncomfortable for them, because there'd be some times where there'd be those things that we, in our mind, we're like, do you know what? We really, really, that feels really important to us. The architect's squirming slightly because they can see that that's maybe not feeling particularly realistic, but we know that we're like, oh, we'll find it. We'll find the money. We will find the money somewhere for this, the extra few £100s to do this thing. But for Katrina and Marlin, it was so important for them that it was all realistic. They didn't want to get to a point where we've then run out of money, and we really appreciated that. We felt in very safe hands. They were very honest. We had the conversations throughout about costs for absolutely everything. It meant that they wanted the input from us about the decisions that we were making. So some of the light fittings or things, everything finalised at the earliest possible opportunity, which sometimes would be like, oh no, but I need 17 years to have my head turned by every single thing I can see on Pinterest before I could come to any decision. But actually, of course, it's helpful to have all of those decisions down so that then you've got, that the oversight and the transparency around where your money's going throughout the project. So yeah, that was another thing that was amazing about having them manage all. But yeah, it was always like, this is going to cost you this is going to cost you this, and what's that going to do to all the other moving pieces?
I
That's
love that.
amazing. I think that's
Yeah.
so good, that kind of that having accountability, having
Mm,
somebody there to kind of say, no, you need to make that decision now, or
yeah.
you need to settle on something. Because,
Hmm.
of course, if you change your mind later, then I'm sure they could accommodate that. But just having those deadlines is really hard to do when you don't have somebody external pushing you to jump through those hoops.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, it happens when the builder turns around and says, "Oh, where are the tiles? Where's the kitchen?" And
Absolutely.
kind of having to make those decisions quite quickly.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Um,
It's on my Pinterest board right now.
Yeah.
So
Let me scroll through 572 images and 7 Pinterest boards, all that have variations of the same name.
yes, yeah. Were you on site while it was happening?
We moved out. I think even if we didn't have a small child, I think we still would have moved out. We were really lucky that Mike's mum lives not far away. So she very, very graciously put us up for, it was 9 months in the end. So I think the build took about 8. And then because we had to do all the decorating ourselves, that was one of these budgetary things. We moved out, but just round the corner so we could put back in quite a lot, and you
Yeah.
drive past and always see what was happening. And then we did about 6 weeks, I think, of me and Mike taking it in turns to come back sort of after bedtime to do various things of getting the house ready to move into.
So were you painting inside? Is that what you mean by
Yeah.
you guys did the decoration?
Yeah.
So how did they hand it over to you? What did you receive after the 8 months?
I mean, everything else was done. I think there must have been some bits, maybe, I can't remember whether maybe in the kitchen we needed to do the painting before they fitted some stuff. So I think there were a couple of moving pieces around some of the things, but most of it was, right, this is done now. And I think actually I was coming and doing like the upstairs. So we didn't have any work done upstairs, but it needed completely redecorating. And Mike ripped all the laminate floor out and spent weeks sanding that back down the original floorboards and like filling them in with this and putting slivers of stuff in. I was maybe doing some of the upstairs while they were finishing up downstairs. Yeah, and like the downstairs toilet, I think I painted that before they then fitted everything. But yeah, most things were done, and they had miscoated everything. So like the hallway, for example, the architects had designed in the entranceway. So we had the front door and the tiles, and then the kind of natural lino flooring. But other than that, we were left to our own devices with the design of the hallway, which actually was one of those things we did piece by piece. And I'm really glad we did, because we gradually added sort of more and more colours. And there's probably there's like 5 colours that take you up through there. And it would be that thing of you do one and then think, oh, actually, I think we need something else here to balance it out. There are a few things actually that I'm really glad we weren't able to do as part of the build, that we then sat with and came up with our own designs for. I think that was a really nice opportunity for us as well. We're not designers, and it was lovely to kind of develop that.
It's such an interesting kind of combination. I'm not sure we've had that one before. It's like architect design, architect on site, but then finishing yourself, which is a really interesting way to kind of slice the pie, if you know what I mean, in terms of budgets and where to put money. And it just shows you that there's just so many different combinations of how to organize the build and how to get the value in the places where you feel you could add some of your own work or using their skills. And nice that was a bonus as well, that gave you some ownership over the inside feel and creativity that brings.
And this is it. I think if you're people who either hate decorating or are really intimidated by it or just really don't like it, that's not your vibe, then of course somebody else come and do everything is what you need to do. But I think we were really lucky that I'd done most of the decorating on our flat before, when we had to completely get that all rewired and redecorated all of that. So I knew my way around a paintbrush, which was handy. And I really enjoy it. It's something I like to do. And we both have a bit of a sort of, let's just see if we can do this, like with the floor. And Mike built our son a bed based on something we'd seen on Pinterest using IKEA cabinets that then we realised a single mattress would fit perfectly in what's actually a really small room. So he built it out of 4 IKEA cabinets, built a bed frame, mattress on the top, did all the woodwork for it and stuff. And he'd never done that before. But we both kind of like that challenge. And I think that does then free us up to be able to confidently say, do you know what? We're going to spend more money on that really lovely vintage lampshade because actually, sod it.
Yeah.
If it means we have to do some more work down the line, we'll make it work. Yes, it did work well for us.
I was just going to say, like, what is it like now? Like, how do you find living in the house now it's finished?
Yeah, I mean, finished is an interesting word. Interesting word, isn't it? Finished. The room I'm sitting in at the moment is our spare room, which is kind of spare room / storage, which I got paint on the walls just because we needed to get the furniture back in, and I really don't like it. The curtains are still the old curtains. It needs a lot of work. We need to get built-in storage in here because we just have boxes still. But apart from this room, it's just amazing. It's just joyful. And what I love about this house is every day the light changes and makes things look really different. And what I loved for the first year, it was just so exciting when the seasons would change. And because it's south-facing and it's sort of triple aspect with all the windows that have been designed in, as the seasons change, the light changes and the shadows change. So it'd be like, oh, this is the first March we've had in the house. Like, wow, look at these incredible shadows you get. And there's really cool ways that the sun will you'll get sort of double shadows where the sun's coming in one side and then bouncing off another window and coming in another side. And it's just, yeah, really, really exciting. But I mean, not everyone's into shadows.
I love shadows too. I think that's one of the things, like if you have to move out of a house, the last house I left, I was really sad that I would never see the shadows that I was used to in the old house. I was like, I'm going to miss these shadows so much. So I'm with you on the shadows. I
Okay,
get it.
good. I'm glad I'm not an outlier in that. So yeah, just the again, it's that the sort of unexpected possibilities that they're just walls. It's just a shell, and to think about how a house can be so much more than that. And that's not to say that you need a house that looks like a massive Polly Pocket playhouse to find joy in your home. People find joy in that, it's absolutely not about everyone's house looking like ours. But I think there's just the fact that we've had the opportunity to make our house how we want it to be, to give us maximum joy. Like, it's such an amazing privilege, like to sound terribly earnest. Like it really is that we've had the chance to do this. But yeah, it just brings so much joy. Like, you could have come home after the worst day, and like there was a time last year when with something, big life event had happened, and I came home and the light, it was around this time of year when you get this really beautiful warm light coming on the front of the house in the evenings. And the shadow of like the little crisscross fence was cast across the house, and it was just glowing. And I just took a moment on what had been like the saddest day of my life to be like, wow. And it just stops you in your tracks sometimes and gives you those moments of like, it's very grounding, of kind of just slow down when you come downstairs and see the worktop that you see every single day, that the light's just hitting it a certain way, and you're like, oh, that is so beautiful. And I come home sometimes and I'll just say to my son, I'm like, our house is so cool. Like, look at our amazing house. How lucky are we that this is our house? It's just beautiful. And I think there's something so lovely about the fact that it could be garish if you describe our house. And don't get me wrong, it is not to everyone's taste, as lots of comments on the internet will show you. And if you describe it, it could seem like it was like, garish and clashing with so many colours and patterns. But it's not. It's harmonious and it's peaceful. And for some people, neutral tones and beige and wood is what brings them peace. It does for me a bit. But for me, it's colour and it's pattern and it's those things that make me feel calm and, grounded. So, to have a house that's just filled with that, and loads of shadows that change all the time, it's just magical.
Oh, I just love that so much. I feel so uplifted. and happy after talking to you. You're such positive energy, and I think it's like you and your house all together. It's really joyous, as you said. It's been really nice to chat with you.
Oh,
Yeah,
thank you.
absolutely.